Hey guys, welcome to your next ActionScript 3 FlashPunk tutorial. It's always such a mouthful, but it's kind of fun to say. If I said the entire title, it would be Game Development ActionScript 3 FlashPunk Tutorial. You gotta catch your breath after that. Alright, so we're gonna jump in right now, and our goals for today are to get enemies shooting. So we'll create a really simple AI that allows enemies to shoot at you and maybe semi-follow you. We're going to make bullets destroy enemies, which one of the people watching this tweeted us about. They were having some problems, so we'll actually look into how to do that, because there's a good way to do it, and then there's also bad ways to do it, and it can get messy. And yeah, we might also then get player health in, depending on how the timing goes and all that. So first up is the bullet. So the bullet is constantly moving upwards. So let's just run it quick and see what we've got so far, so we can recap if you haven't watched a tutorial in a few days. All right, so you can shoot right now, and yeah, that's about it. And you see that the entity number here returns to two ships once all the bullets are off the screen, because bullets destroy themselves, or rather recycle themselves, which is definitely the better way to do it for things that you're constantly creating and destroying. Alright, so let's first off place the player down. So its Y position will be, let's say it's about 50 pixels above the bottom of the screen. So you're like, okay, how do I get the height of the screen? So FlashPunk has this fantastic variable built in. First, I'm going to do a new keyboard shortcut that I might not have told you guys yet, called Control-D. It duplicates a line. So this is another way to import stuff. You can just duplicate lines and change them up here instead of doing the new FP. But either works. So it's a static property of FlashPunk, which is a static class. Like everything that you don't ever create an instance of FlashPunk. You just use methods and properties of it, or functions and variables, whichever way you want to say it. And what you do is you do height. They also have half height here, which is nice if you want to get the center of the screen. You can do half width, half height, and then it'll give you the exact center of the screen. But we're going to do fp.height minus 100. And if we run it, you'll see that it's up here, and I wanted to do 50 pixels, I'm sorry. So you'll see that you're now here. Okay, and then we want it, the ship to be centered horizontally. So we will do half width, and because we have the sprite centered, it'll be perfectly in the center. If we didn't have it centered, alright, it would be slightly off, and then here you would have to do minus sprite dot width divided by 2. And then I'm just going to put parentheses here to kind of show the order of operations, although the computer would do it that way anyway. Alright, so you don't need to do that though. That was just me kind of explaining it in case that you were to run into that situation where you're like, how do I get it centered? You just have to minus half of the sprite's width to the X position, which makes sense. But centering sprites is always a good thing. Sometimes you might just want to center the horizontal rather than the vertical, and we'll get into that in our next tutorial series. But now that it's centered, we are going to have the bullets hit the enemies. So it's much like the collision that we did in, I think, tutorial 3. So what we're going to do is, if collide with enemy at the current X and Y position, to do destroy. Alright, and this is something that I want to point out too. You're like, wait, why did you write to do here? Is that just your little thing? No, that's actually something that's built into Flash Develop. So there's two ways to get to this this menu that I'm about to show you. The first is view task list. Having problems saying that. Okay, and it'll pop up this list down here. Alright, you can also just click here on tasks if it's pinned down here, which I think it is by default. And then right now you don't see anything, but if you press refresh, it will load all the to-dos that are in your project. These two you're probably going to have in text.as and tilemap.as unless they get fixed between the time that this tutorial is posted and the time that you watch it. And these are just to-dos in Flash Develop stuff. You can actually go in, and if you want, you can just delete them and Control-S for save, and delete this one, Control-S and save. And if you go to your tasks, then they will just show the ones in yours. You don't have to do that. It's optional. It's just if you don't want them there, you can remove them because it won't break anything. You don't need those comments. There's just comments. So yeah. So right here we're going to destroy the enemy when it collides. So how do we get the enemy that we collided with here? That's a toughie. But thankfully, because of the way that FlashPunk is built, is if you hover over collide, you'll see that it returns an entity, which means that it returns the entity that we want to collide with. So I'm going to cut this out and do var enemy entity is equal to collide enemy. Now, we could also do it the way that we have it in player, where we do var bullet is equal to world.create as bullet. So we could do enemy as enemy, but it's not necessarily required in this case because we don't need it to specifically be an enemy. It's okay if it's only an entity. So what we do here is we do if enemy is not equal to null, because if you're not colliding with it, what will happen is it will return null, which means no value, or nothing, pretty much. So, if the enemy is not, if the enemy is not null, then you need to destroy it. You could also rewrite this a second way, which is if, if enemy is equal to collide enemy xy. And this looks a bit weird, and basically what it's doing is it's saying, notice that it's 1 equal and not 2. If this was equal, it would check to see if the existing variable enemy is equal to what this returns. But no, if you do this, what it does is it gets the value back from collide, it assigns it to enemy, and then it basically reads it as this, if enemy. So if enemy is null, it won't go in, which you could technically do up here. If enemy. But this is just another way of writing it. And in future tutorials, I'll probably write it that way, but for now, we'll just do it this way, because this is a bit more approachable for beginners. So if enemy is not null, what we need to do is fp, wait, no, we don't need fp, I'm sorry. World dot remove enemy. Alright, so if we go over and try shooting our enemy, you ready? Are you ready? Nothing's gonna happen. Oh wait, something is going to happen. Never mind. Did I already set that up? I don't remember setting that up. Alright, well it worked. So I didn't set up a hitbox for this bullet, which is interesting, but it still did collide. So let me check this out. Okay, so I guess the bullet already has a hitbox. It's just very, very small. So what you could do here is set hitbox to sprite.width, sprite.height, and center origin. And now when we run it and you shoot, you'll see that the hitboxes are the full size of the bullets. And then we also want to do type is equal to bullet. So anything else we'll know. So now the problem is if we well, first off, let's speed up these bullets to like 8, because they take forever to get up to that ship. So now they shoot super fast. So now you see that the bullet just goes right through it. There is no destruction of the bullet. So what we want to do here is world.recycle this. This is a magical keyword. I don't remember if I've explained it before, but basically it refers to the current instance of bullet. So it's basically saying recycle this bullet. So yeah, it's a variable. If you try to create a variable with the name this, it will not work. So don't do it. It's a reserved keyword, just like null and a couple others that super. Can't think of any more from AS3 off the top of my head right now. I guess extends, class, var, function, those, import, package. So yeah. We've got bullets, and we've got enemies being destroyed. So now what we want to do is get enemies to shoot at you. So, first off, well, we still don't have our new assets for the tutorials. What we will do temporarily is do sprite.angle is equal to 180. FlashPunk works in degrees, and ActionScript 3 works in radians. So when you're doing angles and trigonometry and all that, you have to be careful when you're working with all these different things. So let's say that you wanted to work with radians, all right? So math.pi, which would be the equivalent to 180 degrees. You can multiply it by, first, new FlashPunk, all right, flashpunk.rad, .degree. Okay, and what this will do is it will convert it, and then you could do the opposite by multiplying it by the radians. So just to make sure that this works, we will run it, and you'll see over here that it's rotated 180 degrees. However, you'll see that it's kind of weird because it's rotating around this point instead of its center. So if we then do sprite.center00, you'll see that it now rotates around here, which is better. No, that's actually perfect. We just need to move the hitbox now. Center, origin. And now you'll see that it rotates here, and if we remove this, you'll see that it's unrotated there. Alright, the reason why it got shifted over is because we changed the position of the image, so to say, the origin of that. So let's do half width, and y is equal to 100. So now it's right there. We shoot it. Okay, so now what enemy needs to do is to be able to shoot a bullet, which means that we can either create a new type called enemy bullet, or we can what am I trying to say? Or we can reuse this bullet class, and that's what we're going to do. Alright, so the difference between the two is if you created an enemy bullet, you'd have to code a whole new bullet, but you would be able to make it go the opposite direction, just automatically. So instead of doing y minus equals speed, you just put y plus equals speed. You could create, you could keep bullet like this, and then create a player bullet and an enemy bullet, which are both child versions of the class. But we're gonna go the beginner route that most people would do probably at the beginning. That's not create two different classes. So inside reset, we're going to have a third parameter, and it's going to be called bullet type, and it's going to be a string. So what we do here is we do bullet type plus bullet here. So what is bullet type? It'll either be player or enemy. So in all, if a player shoots it, the type will be player bullet, and if an enemy shoots it, it'll be enemy bullet. Pretty easy. Which also means that back in player, we now need to reset and put player here. Okay, so that's done. Now let's get the enemy shooting. So what we will do is I'm trying to think, because we could set up a timer here. I think we'll do that. So we're going to set up the simplest type of timer. So private var timer, which is an int, which is equal to 0. Private var timer limit, which is equal to 3. So what we do is we do timer plus plus. So timer gets incremented, and if timer is greater than or equal to 3, which is always going to be 3. This is just something that programmers do. Shoot, and then timer is equal to 0. So, oops, it shouldn't be greater than or equal to 3. It should be timer limit. So every frame, it'll go up, and every 3 frames he will shoot, which is really fast. So let's change that to 10. So with our frame rate being at 30, this enemy will shoot 3 times a second, which is still really fast. But it'll be okay. So what we will do is we're actually just going to copy these 2 lines right here from the player, because there's no need to rewrite it, and we will do enemy. Okay? Now, as you can see, the first bullet that the enemy shot killed the enemy. So now what we need to do is right here, we need to do something that checks to see if they're colliding with a proper enemy. So this gets a bit interesting. So what we're going to do here is create a variable, and we will call it other type, which is a string. So other type. This is kind of interesting. So if bullet type is equal to player, other type will be equal to enemy. Else if bullet type is equal to enemy, other type will be equal to player. So now what we can do is we can take other type and we can plug it in here. So it'll always check for the other type. So then when the enemy shoots, the enemy bullets will try hitting players, and the player will try hitting enemies, which is exactly what we want. And I typoed something, alright. Okay, now we need to fix his shooting, what's it called? Direction, that's what I'm trying to say. So, this is pretty easy too. There's 2 things we need to do here. First, we need to fix this line. So, if bullet, if other type is equal to enemy, shoot upwards, because we're shooting at enemies. Else if other type is equal to player, y plus equals speed. Boof! And we see that the enemy can now destroy the player. Alright, this game's already, like, kind of hard, because let's see if I can even evade it. Just hardly. Oh my goodness. We basically have a game at this point. We could technically ship it. It's called kill the enemy or let the enemy kill you. Let's see if I can win. Oh, and we killed each other. Okay, so pretty awful game so far. The second thing is, if I move out of the way, you'll see that the enemy bullets never get recycled, and that's because this only checks to see if the Y position is less than the world, basically. If it's less than 0, minus the height of the bullets, right? So we also need to do, you could do it as an if, or you could do it as an else if. It won't matter. But if Y is greater than FP, I need to import it, fp.height plus sprite.height. World.recycle this. Alright, the other way that you could do this is doing an OR. So I don't remember if I've explained this or not, which I probably should have. Alright, you can do this. Alright, and this will say if this is true or if this is true, do this. And it's not an exclusive OR. So like if this is true, it'll just automatically do this without even reading this. So if they're both true, it'll definitely go. If one of them's true, it will go. But if both of them are false, they won't do that. There's also AND. And even if I have explained this, is a good review. So and will make sure that both of these are happening, which would never happen because it can't be up here and down here at the same time. So the or here will make sure that it recycles bullets. Oh, but yeah, you can see that it's recycling them, and the enemy is continuously shooting them. So we've got bullets. Now maybe we should include health. So what we will do is private var health. Health is actually really easy. And it's going to be a bit different in this situation. So health is 3. And what we need to do is when the bullet hits, instead of removing it, we need to do something. So what we can do here is if enemy.type is equal to player, because we can check the enemy's type, decrease health, or else remove the enemy. And also, let's refactor this. Let's call this ship hit. So if the ship hit is a player, decrease the player's health. So now what we need to do is do what's called a typecast. So player, ship hit, and now we can get access to all of the properties. So we're going to make this public, which a lot of game developers would cringe at. Others, not so much. And we can do health minus minus. All right. And then in the player's update, what we do is if health is less than or equal to 0, world.remove this. So now, when we get hit 1, 2, 3, boof, we're dead. So health's really easy. There's no display yet, which we will get into later on. It's just HUD and stuff is something we're going to do later on, because HUD's like an entire thing in itself. That'll be probably 1 or 2 videos. So we've got the player shooting, bullet destroying the enemy shooting, the player can die, the player has health, bullets make sure to remove themselves as they go off screen, and yeah, that's about it. So next time we're going to do some more polishing. We're probably going to get in the assets. I have just about all of them readily available on my computer, so you'll be seeing that soon, and can't wait to get the next tutorial out. We have 5 more before this game is complete. Hopefully we can get all the content in by there and I don't have to cut anything out. I think 5 videos is enough. But without further ado, this has been an indie tutorial. I'm Brett Hudson, Indie Function. More links here. Have a great day.